Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr.
And I'm Cindy Baldwin.
And you're listening to the midweek version of Fiber Talk, the twice weekly podcast for needlework artists. I didn't have very much enthusiasm there. Actually, I'm charged up about doing this, so the tone of my voice has nothing to do with the enthusiasm in my heart. How's that?
Okay.
Whatever. Okay, so tonight, coerced during a show with massive peer pressure, Deb DeCrane is going to join us tonight to show us how to lace a piece of needlework.
Cool.
Yes, and she has sent the photos to me that she took while she was doing it, and they're beautiful.
Great.
Beautiful, clear photos, and they're large so we can zoom in, and I'm pumped up about this. So when we get all done, there will be a video with Deb DeCrane showing you how she laces needlework.
Great.
Yay. And so thanks to Deb, even though we pressured her into it on a live show, thanks to Deb. Yeah. So that's tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on the YouTube channel. And Sunday, Jessica Grimm joins us after 2 years. It's been 2 years, 3 years. Now
wow.
See. Well, 2 years. You know, I hate that. Anyway, it's been a long stinking time. How about that?
There you go.
So we talked to Jessica. Now, Jessica Grimm is a needlework historian, designer, teacher. And if you don't listen or don't read her blog every week or every 2 weeks, whatever she does. Yeah. Oh, you do. So you know. Yeah. Yeah. That's one you don't miss. You just don't miss that one. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So great conversation with her about all kinds of things, but a lot of needlework history and what she's learned and digging stuff out of old museums in Europe and so on and so forth. So we had a great time with her. So that's Sunday. And if you missed last Sunday's with Kim Young, go back and listen to that because, it's a lot of fun there too. Stitch St. Luce Women's Cooperative. I have, if you know what a contractor plastic bag is.
Uh-huh.
You know, it goes like in a 40-gallon drum or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I now have one that is half full of
Holy
threads
smokes.
and needers. Yeah. And somebody is sending me 200 or 300 more skeins of thread.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's at least a half dozen other people who are sending things in. So in the next 4 or 5 days, we'll have it to the point, I think, where I'm going to send the thing to
Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you. And then we'll see how we do after that. And then just learned that Jessica Grimm, who does a lot of teaching, she had 12,000 skeins of cotton thread.
Wow.
And all she uses in her teaching and designs anymore is silk. And she's sending all that to Madagascar.
Oh, wow.
How about that? How about that? Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. Those women are going to be loaded with thread. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. So.
That's fantastic.
Yep. So, collectively we've done a really good thing here, and they're going to have, down there in Madagascar, they are going to have a bunch of thread to make things out of, and it's just kind of cool to be able to do that. So.
Yeah.
Yep. So, awesome. Yeah, good stuff. If you want to contribute, and it doesn't have to be 12,000 skeins, trust me. I can't even imagine having that many. But
12 would be fine.
12 is fine, yeah.
Or 2.
Right. But, yeah, I suppose if you're doing teaching like that, you buy in those kinds of quantities, and, she moved on to silk, so there they were. But if you want to send, email me, Gary@wetalkfiber.com. I'll send you my address. And, it's like Cindy said, got two skeins you want to contribute, send them. And, or you got a bunch, whatever. Please do not send the cheaper DMC floss like high school girls use to make wristbands for friendship and that kind of thing. For what the ladies down in Madagascar use over wherever, they need the full blown DMC or equivalent thread. So please.
That other stuff really isn't meant for stitching.
No.
It's not smooth, and it just doesn't stitch well.
No. So yeah, the real deal. Anchor thread is fine. Some people have asked, what about stuff that's been on bobbins? Send it.
Yep.
I just asked that if you send anything, just so it isn't a tangled up mess, please, because I'm not going to sit here and untangle it, and
they won't want to either.
No, yeah, I'm not sending them a bunch of stuff that isn't separated by a specific color. So, and we're not having the women down there. Here's a gift. Now spend the next month untangling it. No, we're not doing that. No. So. But very cool. And needles, sharp needles is what they prefer, size 5 to 9. If you want to send those, that's also needed. And they like brighter colors. So pink, yellow, purple, green, the lighter colors, the bright colors they like. But send whatever you have. They'll use it all eventually, I'm sure. So do that. And then we've also had, last Wednesday on the show, it came up about postage. And this is going to be more than just a nice giant bubble pack of thread. So I've had several people, and I really appreciate it, who have contributed some money for postage. And I took this on knowing postage would be a factor, and that's okay. Willing to do it. But if you want to contribute to help out with the postage, it's gotten so big now that I'm more than happy to have it. And you can just PayPal that to Gary at WeTalkFiber.com if you want. I had two people who said they didn't have any thread to contribute, but when we mentioned about postage, they were all about it because it was their way to contribute. So,
great.
So that worked out. So not begging for it. I'm just saying if you are inclined to help with the postage, happy to have it because now it's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah, have you heard from Rebecca? Are you still going to be able to ship it the same way to avoid the customs?
No, she sent me new instructions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I wrote to her. I said, this is what sent her a picture of the mound of thread, and I said, and more's on the way. And I said, any help? So she sent me new instructions for shipping large quantity like that.
Good.
Yeah. And then the stuff that Jessica Grimm is sending her, she said that 2 volunteers who are traveling to Madagascar in May are going to take those threads down themselves.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
And Jessica wrote to tell me, what had transpired. And she said, can you imagine the look on the custom people's faces when they open the suitcase? Yep. It's nothing but thread.
Uh-huh.
So very cool. It's fun to do that kind of thing and help people out who obviously will benefit greatly from it. So yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So if you want to, fine. However you want to contribute, and certainly no obligation whatsoever. So there we go.
Great.
Cool stuff. Let's see. There's so many things here. Now, see, if I'd done this right, I'd have the next thing in my head, and then we'd go on to that. Michelle Long, listener Michelle Long, told me about a new blog from Anne Marie Anderson Mays. And now we did a show with her some time ago. Her business is Beautiful Stitches, Counted Canvas Work, Australia.
Yep.
Gorgeous designs.
Yes.
Yes, gorgeous designs. She has started a new blog called The Hands Manifesto. I'm locked in. I'm locked in on that. She's a really good writer, and she has some good thoughts. Of course, the trick is to keep it up, but
right.
The posts that are there are very good. So the one that Michelle Long pointed me to for us to consider as a topic is Maker DNA is the title of it. It's a March 14 post, Maker DNA. And then so a little reading here. So what makes us fall in love with a particular piece or style of handwork? I don't have the answer to that question. The most apt term I can conjure is Maker DNA, the idea that we have an almost instinctive connection to a type of material or a style of making. For me, and this is Anne Marie, for me it is the rhythmically calming process of needle up and down, the delicious feel of fiber being drawn through fabric. I love watching a design gradually develop as different colored threads are laid down to create pattern and texture. I've felt that way about stitching for as long as I can remember, and my recent love affair with Kaffe, that's how you say that, okay. Shells and turtles is just one example of many times I've been totally enchanted by my embroidery. And if you go to her thing, she has a whole piece on this shells and turtles design that she was at a show, and it was being shown across the aisle. And throughout the show, finally she went and bought it. She couldn't resist anymore.
So I have a couple of, and it's Kaffe Fassett. He's British, and I have one or two of his books, and I've also bought a fair amount of the fabric, the quilt fabric that he designs.
Oh.
Some of our local quilt shops carry it, and Renaissance Ribbons. I don't know if you follow them on any social media. They have some of their ribbons are designed by him. They're beautiful brocade type ribbons, for embellishing whatever. And he loves color. He's a character. I've never. He wasn't. They had a show. Our quilt shop here had a show of his fabrics, I don't know, several years ago before the pandemic. He wasn't at that, but I've seen him on maybe YouTube or something like that. And he's a character. He knits and he needle points and he quilts, and he puts the weirdest colors together that you would think, but they look great. And he's pretty casual about it too. The needlepoint, he doesn't bother with stretcher bars or anything like that. He just picks up some canvas and some yarn and stitches away. Same thing with knitting. He's an interesting person, and I do follow some of his stuff on social media too.
Well, why haven't I done a show with him?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm going to have to write to him and see if we can get him. That sounds fascinating. I didn't know all that about him. I knew the name, but I never chased down what he did. Wow.
So that kind of took us off of Anne Marie's comment here. But, I people might enjoy looking at some of the stuff that he does. And he's done some beautiful, beautiful needlepoint pieces in the past, unfortunately. And I think some of them might be available through, is it Elizabeth Bradley?
Okay. What is it?
But everyone's
like old school wool needlepoint?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But beautiful designs and basket weave.
Yeah.
But every once in a while I'll see somebody saying, I'd love to do Kaffe Fassett's, whatever, artichoke or whatever. And so they're looking for the canvas, or some of his designs are charted in some of those books that are available.
Oh.
But most of them are probably out of print right now. So if you want one that has a design in it that you want, you're going to probably pay for it to get it. But they're available on eBay and other places like that when you look for them. I don't think he's had a needlepoint book published recently.
Well, I'm going to have to hunt him down. So it's the spelling I have for his first name, Kaffe, and then you say it's Fassett?
It's Fassett.
Okay. Kaffe Fassett. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah. Well, we're going with you. Yeah. It's all on
And
you.
if you get him to talk with you, then he can tell you exactly how it's
Right.
pronounced.
Well, we're going to have to give that a shot. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I got to know. See, it's the thing. Now I got to know. Yep. So, okay. So anyway, so then Anne-Marie bought this piece, and then her last of the stuff I pulled out of her blog, I think all of us have a maker DNA, materials and processes that we are instinctively drawn to, that feel like home when we find them. Nearly every maker I know or whose story I read describes what it feels like to be totally connected to their materials, engrossed in their work. Many have stories that speak of restlessness or discontent that disappears when they find the handwork that feels right. Do you do that?
I
Get
don't.
cranky and edgy if you can't stitch?
No, not really.
Okay.
No. I know that I've heard Beth talk about that before, and her husband will tell her to sit down and stitch
Right,
for a while. But no, I don't.
Go to your
I don't
room,
get that
Beth.
way. Yeah. No, but I do. You know, it's always calming to sit down and stitch, and even something that's complicated. You know, it's just satisfying to do this kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't get that either. I don't get edgy if I can't stitch. But now I will say that if I can't stick to my regular bike riding schedule, such that it is, then yeah, I start to get kind of irritated because I really just want to go ride my bike. And
well, there's other things there. You know, you get those endorphins from the exercise, and you know, it's a little different feeling of well-being from exercise.
Yeah. But I do get
stitching.
When I ride my bike, I get the same effect that I get out of stitching, because there's always a point. Take for just say a 2-hour bike ride. There's always a point about halfway in when the body just kind of settles in to this is what we're going to do until we stop, and that I feel that release, that my mind just releases, and then we just settle in and we just ride, and and that's where road riding, right? Just going out on the road and riding for miles, that happens. If I'm on my mountain bike, it doesn't happen, because if you do that, you end up in a tree somewhere. Yeah, it's not pretty. But I have that happens for me as it does for needlework. Because once I'm able to sit down and just go, then yeah, there's that. You can just feel it drain out of your body, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But this, maker DNA, because I think everybody we've talked to, every guest we've talked to, but there are people that if you follow on social media, they are just makers.
Yeah.
They just give them something and they'll make something out of it. And, it's impressive to me to be able to do that. Yeah.
Well, how many people have you known over the years that retired and didn't know what to do with themselves and were just bored because they didn't have a hobby?
Right.
But people who have a hobby, and maybe it's fishing or tinkering with cars or stitching or whatever, it's something that keeps your hands and mind busy, so that you're not just sitting there staring off into space or watching TV mindlessly or whatever.
Right.
And the people that don't have that kind of thing just are at a loss.
Right. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Now, like for instance, when my grandfather died, not when he died, but when he retired, he worked for the railroad, Grand Trunk Railroad, for his entire life. And when he retired, and he was always, because he worked he was the head of a switch gang and all weather, unfreezing switches, and all that stuff. And when he retired, he was the kind of guy, he could give you directions anywhere, he just on top of it all the time. Within a couple of months after he retired, and he had no hobbies, none whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
Within a couple of months, his mental functions dropped like a stone. And all of us would kind of look at each other like, what happened here? And my dad took the bull by the horns and took him to the local hardware store. And I'm sure it was prearranged, but anyway, got him a job at the local hardware store. Because he was always one of those, I can fix anything, I can do anything, because that's what he did, and it's his entire life. And it was a part-time job. He snapped out of it almost overnight. And so when you talk about these hobbies, he needed something to make his mind churn.
Yeah.
And once he got it back, he was back in business, and all the way till he died. It was, and he just loved going to that hardware store. But yeah, those hobbies are. They're a money suck and so on and so forth, but they just play an important role. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I told my boss more than once that my job interfered with my hobbies, but I needed the hobby. I mean, needed the job to support the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah, economics. Yeah, yeah. Well, all right.
Yeah,
So you retired not too long ago. What was that dynamic? What happened? Because now you have time to stitch whenever you want, however you want. Did you? Because like for me, I stitch when I have a chance. I wish I had more time. Blah 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 blah. When you get to that point where you now have more time, did you seize it? Do you do more, or how did that work out for you?
Oh, I'm doing a lot more. I don't stitch every day. Some days I just put my feet up and watch TV mindlessly, or I read, or just different things. But I don't feel guilty about doing that kind of thing. When I stitch, I usually will stitch for 3 or 4 or maybe 6 hours.
Yeah.
I'll sit down and I will really immerse myself in it, and I'm getting a lot done. I am doing we've talked about this before, I think. I'm doing the whip go with my different pumpkin charts and
for the state fair plan. Yes,
state fair, right? Actually, that's stressing me out a little bit because I've got way too many things started, and then I signed up for 2 goldwork classes, and I signed up for the Hazel Bloom Camp class that she's doing in Heartland EGA later this year. So.
Oops.
I've got way too much stuff started, but I say it stresses me out, but it really doesn't that much. It's just that I'm not used to having this many things that are kind of active. I have plenty of stuff that I've started that hasn't gotten finished, but they're not all right in front of me.
Yeah.
And the pumpkin projects kind of are, because I just have about 14 of them, and they're repeated, just 14. They're repeated on the whip go, so they come up, they'll come up twice.
Yeah.
And so I put them into bags or whatever, but they're still in my room.
14
in my living room where I stitch.
14 pumpkins, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, but it does give you, there's a mental freedom there that if I had more time, I'd do more things. So then that is actually happening for you, but within reason. So 6 hours, to be able to just sit down 4, 5, 6 hours, and it doesn't matter because there's nothing else that you have to do. There's no obligation.
Nope.
Wow.
And that's when I listen. So I used to listen to the podcasts on my way to and from work.
Uh-huh.
And now I don't have to do that. So I listen to podcasts while I stitch.
Yeah.
And when I get through all of them, then you listen to an audiobook.
Okay.
But
so there's always that something occupying the other side of your brain then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What fun.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah, when the chickens are really going to come home to roost is when I have to get all this stuff finished
Mm.
and pay for framing and finishing.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a lot of
Yeah.
pumpkins, though. There's a lot of pumpkins. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they won't all be framed. One of them will be finished into a pillow. One will be a bell pull, because these are the categories at the state fair.
Yeah.
One of them is on a towel.
Hmm.
So there's ornaments. So not all of them will be framed. The majority of them will be framed, but not all of them will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just have to kind of, space that out so I don't have everything in there all at once. Which isn't a problem, because some of the pumpkins are really big, and it's going to take me a while to get them done.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, all right, then that, because I wondered about that. What happens in that transition from working a full-time job to it's not there anymore?
It's freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
I can get up whenever I want. I can sleep as late as I want. I just don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
It's, and I have plenty of other stuff to do. I work out at the gym 3 times a week. And trying to increase my circle of friends in different ways, so people that I've known for a while but really haven't had time to spend much time with, I try to get together with them for dinner or lunch or something like that once a month or so, and make sure that, because I would be perfectly happy staying in the house all the time and not getting out and doing anything.
Talk to me
want
about that.
I don't really want to do that. Yeah. It'd be easy to turn into a stitching recluse.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not good for you, so.
I'd try it. I'd try it for a few months, see what happened.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'd try it. Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, see, because I envision the day I get to quit working the full-time job. Get up in the morning, go for a bike ride for however long I want to.
Uh-huh.
Because that's the other thing is there are some mornings where I really need to get to the computer, and so the bike ride has to be short. And
Yep.
Then other days, all right, I think I can burn a couple 3 hours here, so I'll do it. But yeah, there's always that thing out there that I need to get this done and get back to it. So the thought of putting some gear on the bike and saying I'll be back around noon would that's appealing. But yeah, I can see a bike ride, a nap, and then stitching. Yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not a bad day. Yeah.
Nope.
That's not a bad day. Yeah. So, okay, so that it works. All right, it works. But see, that's the thing. Yeah, you have interests and hobbies, so when you retired, those things that had been held in check sprung free.
Yep.
And the guilt disappeared completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What fun.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing, and that's where I think when she talks about maker DNA, that's where it comes into play, because no matter whether it's your full-time job or just a passion on the side, it always keeps your wheels spinning. And that, to me, that's the most important part. I mean, all the research says that's what you got to do. Keep your wheels spinning. Right.
And, I've done all kinds of different crafts over the years. I've probably about one of the few things I haven't tried is pottery, or even painting pottery. That was a big thing for a while. And that was something my mom did, but I never did that. Most of what I've done over the years has kind of been textile related in some way or another. I did a lot of macrame for when that was popular. I made my own clothes for a while. Never really done much quilting. I collect quilt fabric, but I haven't actually done quilting.
That macrame thing, that was I was much younger, so it was just not relevant to me. But I mean, you talk about a craze that just went nuts.
Yeah.
Everybody was hanging a flower pot or something from a macrame whatever.
Yeah. My mom still has one that I made for her hanging in her kitchen.
Yep.
And, it's kind of coming back.
Oh, is it?
Uh-huh. In a couple of ways. I've seen people doing it for decor, the way that we used to, and a lot of them are wall hangings and that sort of thing. But it's also jewelry. So they're using tiny, tiny cords and knotting and adding beads and things like that to make necklaces and bracelets.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. See, I just remember the great big macrame hanging pots, and then you'd put a wandering Jew plant in it and let it grow all the way to the floor.
Or a spider plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, the salon that I used to go to had someone just, probably in the last 5 years, make a big macrame wall hanging on a piece of driftwood, I think, is what she used for the base to knot the rope onto. And it was done in a really nice, soft, white kind of rope, not jute, So this is the other thing, it's just like with needlework, somebody comes out with new things to do your hobby with, and all of a sudden it revitalizes it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of colored ropes and different sizes of ropes, and this one is white, and the room that it's in is wall is painted a really dark gray. So it's a beautiful contrast hanging on that wall, and it's probably, it might be maybe 3 feet wide and 4 feet long.
Whoa.
It's big.
Yeah. But so then because we have new rope, it doesn't look like you went out to the barn and pulled down a bunch of rope and knotted it together. So now we're starting to come to a new level with this. Okay.
Right. It's not jute anymore.
Yeah. Because that's what I always struggled with is, okay, I see what you did there, but it's just, wrap that around a horse and lead them out to pasture, same difference. Right. And
no, what people are doing today is much more sophisticated.
All right, I got to look and see. I'll never do it, but I got to look and see now just to see what people are doing. Okay.
Yeah, just do a search on Instagram.
Yeah, 8,000 will come up. Okay, no, I'll check it out. Yeah. That's well, I mean, it's threads have changed needlework. Crying out loud! Look at what it's done for us. All the different threads we have. It's fantastic.
Well, yeah. I mean, you quit doing needlepoint because you didn't like working with wool and you didn't like doing basket weave. Right.
Oh yeah, just torture.
But now, we can use wool if we want to, but we don't have to.
Right. Oh yeah, it was fun for a while, but geez.
I got tired of crewel for the same reason. It was all. And really, I wasn't doing the kind of crewel that we see these days with all the different stitches and stuff like that. I was really doing thread painting with wool.
Oh.
But it's called crewel as far as I knew.
Yeah.
And I just got tired of it.
Yeah.
And that's when I switched to cross stitch.
Yep.
So I've always had some kind of other thing that I did. Mm-hmm. I didn't do embroidery, for a long time as an adult, but I was sewing and other things.
Yeah.
And, and the embroidery wasn't too far away. And when I joined the Embroiderers Guild, that's when I really started doing a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that gets your juices flowing when you do that kind of a thing, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's where I learned all kinds of different techniques, and that's what the guilds do, is that as they are really great at teaching these techniques and keeping them, maybe alive isn't quite the right word, but not letting them disappear.
Yeah.
It's a repository for techniques.
Right.
and so they bring them out every once in a while, periodically, and do articles in the magazines on them,
Right.
and somebody will look at that and say, I wonder if I could use this thread for that technique, and all of a sudden you've got something brand new.
Yep. And everybody wants to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's and I think keeping it alive is really kind of the best term. To me, that's what we see all over the world these days is people keeping older techniques alive. And like when we talk to Jessica Grimm and all the history she researches and shares with us.
Yeah.
All that's effectively has been dead, a lot of it, because it just went away with the medieval whole lifestyle, if you can call it that. And then to bring it back and to show off its beauty and the technique and the talent that was behind that, it's just it's important. I just think it's so much fun when people do that and keep that stuff alive and show us how to do it so others can experience it. And
well, and especially how to do it with what's available to us today, because we just simply don't have the same access to materials that they had in those times. And I know you've talked to Trish and Nguyen about that, and Kathy Ray might have mentioned some of it too. That the materials that they used for caskets or religious or royal garments, just are not available these days, whether it's the ground fabric or the threads. But there are substitutes that, maybe don't give you exactly the same look, but you can still do the technique and achieve something that's beautiful.
Yeah. That's gold work materials is one that concerns me. It's not on my top 10 list of concerns, but it certainly is, because I think there's just two manufacturers pretty much in the world who make good quality stuff, and yeah, I'm glad to see so many doing gold work, because I'd sure hate to see that availability disappear, because that'd be a shame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Need to.
And and probably the reason I think those two companies are in England, in Britain.
Right.
And probably the reason is because there's still a demand for uniforms and garments for the monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
That there's still that need for production kinds of embellishments for uniforms and garments.
Serve the fashion industry effectively. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then there is the whole fashion industry where they're using a lot of those materials.
Right.
Maybe in a different way. I was kind of thinking about the gold braid on uniforms and epaulettes and caps and that sort of thing. And I know, even in the U.S., there's still a lot of that on military uniforms, and there must be somebody that's making that stuff.
I would sure think so. Yeah. It's and by fashion industry, I was loosely defining it, meaning all the clothing of all types. And,
right.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And there's going to be that demand. I'd hate to see that go away, and one day we couldn't get pearl or whatever it is, and quality stuff, not chintzy plasticized whatever. Yeah.
Right. And I think there are manufacturers in Asia, but again, I don't think it's the quality.
Right. Yeah, well, you get that stuff from Britain. It's the real deal. Yeah. When you're doing your stitching, do you monitor yourself or review your work to say I'm getting better, or I could do this better, and the next one I'm going to try this and this to do a better job? Or have you just done it so long that you've reached some level where you're satisfied with what you do and don't think about it?
So I wouldn't really say that I do a quality check.
That sounds so formal.
I know. Although, it's not a bad idea, because people, and I've done this too, I've forgotten to cross a stitch, And, so you should, when you're done with a piece of work, look at it very carefully and make sure you didn't miss any stitches or whatever. I don't do that, but usually on something that I'm working on for a while, as I'm working on it and I look over what I've already done, sometimes I'll see something that I missed finishing that stitch.
Yeah.
And so I, go back and finish it, or I left something unstitched. I meant to go back and do it, and I never got around to it. So it is a good idea to check your work and make sure that you really are finished with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not very good about doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
I do, as I go along and am stitching, if I see something that, you think you're stitching along and you're looking at it as you go along, and then you're down, I don't know, 4 or 5 lines later, and you look back up and you think, what the heck? That stitch isn't laying flat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, why the heck didn't I notice that when I did it?
Yeah, yeah.
How come it took me, 2 inches before I realized that stitch isn't right? And whether I go back and fix it kind of depends on how bad it really is. If it really is not laying right, chances are good there's a knot on the back.
Yeah.
That I didn't feel.
Right.
And I don't turn my work over a lot. I try to start and stop on top.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll miss those knots sometimes. And then I go back and fix it.
Yeah.
But I guess I really try to do the best work that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Without, really thinking necessarily about improvement on the next piece.
Yeah. Okay, because this happens to me. Do you feel yourself, as you're working through a project, do you feel yourself getting better in that you could, maybe probably isn't noticeable, but you could go back to stitches you did at the beginning of the project and the end and say, I stitched these better than those?
Not so much. I do try to be pretty consistent.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
And actually, maybe I might notice that if I did actually go back and look at it closely when I was done. Some of that, I think, is not so much that you get better stitching, but that you get in a rhythm as you go along, and you, especially if you're working on a project pretty consistently, where you're not, switching from cross stitch to needlepoint and hardhanger and back and forth between different techniques, where you have to recalibrate your tension.
Yeah.
And how you lay the stitches. I think when you're doing something consistently for a long period of time, you get into a rhythm, and which is why you should use a doodle cloth when you're doing something that you're not normally doing, so that you can develop that rhythm and that consistency in your stitches. I don't do that either.
Well, see, for me, I say I feel like I'm getting better. I don't think I look back, and I don't think if I did a cross stitch piece, if I the first X's and the last X's, that there's any visual difference. But I guess it is more of a rhythm thing. I get into a rhythm and get immersed, and things just seem to go smoother. So that's probably the perception I'm having, is that I'm getting better. But like if I get a 2 or 3 hour block of time where I'm able to stitch, I do find that I get more efficient with my stitch path. And particularly with cross stitch, but really with any of them, I get more efficient with that, and that's probably what gives me that feeling of stitching better. Because the tension's the same across the board. I mean, it's not visible, not like the first few stitches were flopping all over the place or anything like that.
Right.
But it's probably that. It's probably a rhythm and an efficiency. But I do know that my mind just clicks into seeing stitch paths as I'm going, and I just then I can really really go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's for the kinds of things that you stitch. That's really important
Right.
because you're not doing full coverage things. You have to pay attention to where your threads are going on the back so they don't show through on the front.
Right. Right. And that's part of it for me too. Is I start feeling like the back is cleaner, which I know is not supposed to matter, but it matters to me.
Right.
And yeah, so and that's when I start really feeling like the stitching is going well, when I know, and I've been working really hard at not flipping my canvas over, but when I know that back is when I flip it over, it's as clean as it's going to get, then I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, that takes some practice. That not flipping it over.
Mm-hmm.
That takes some. To get it to be second nature. It probably is second nature for you, but it's not for me. I have to work at it.
Oh, it's not for me either.
No.
And that's it is for starting, but for ending, I found that for what I'm working on, because I'm working on a larger count fabrics than you normally do, and I'm stitching over two, that tucking the thread under the stitches on the top, I don't like the look of. When it's a larger stitch.
Yeah.
And for a cross stitch, it's just harder to move the threads aside to do a pin stitch. I mean, I do that on needlepoint all the time.
Right.
On needlepoint, I almost never turn my canvas over to anchor threads. I do almost always move the threads aside, like Debbie Rowley has showed us, and anchor that way, and then just kind of stroke the threads back over.
Yeah.
A cross stitch, that doesn't work that well. So I will end the thread in the path of where I'm stitching and just stitch over it, and then clip it off when I get close to the end, or sometimes I'll turn it over then and clip off several.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to turn it over and run it back under the previous stitches. I just try to do that as little as possible, just because it slows things down.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I would agree. There are times where that's your best choice is to flip that thing over and anchor the thread on the back, because on the front it's going to show. Sometimes it'll show, other times it doesn't. And then sometimes when I think it shows through the magnifier, then I remind myself, all right, back off of the magnifier. And, oh yeah, you can't see it at all. Okay, I'm moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I guess that, that's probably part of my problem too. I am looking at it under the magnifier and forget to look at it without it. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to remember that. Yeah, you can see so much more than you would at arm's length. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I back off and say, wait a minute. Let me look at it without the magnifier. Oh, yeah, I'm good. Because it really does add to your efficiency if you don't have to flip that canvas over all the time.
Right.
Big difference. Yeah, anymore. Yeah, I start everything with a pin stitch. It doesn't matter what it is. I start. Yeah, and then and I'll have little tails hanging off the back, but I just flip it over and cut those all off and.
Yeah, I have been using a loop start on most of my cross stitch because I'm using 2 strands. And I never used to do that. I just used 2 strands and stitched over it. But it's quicker.
Yep. It gets you up and running. You're up and running. You're stitching. Yeah.
Right. And I've even Debbie uses the loop start on counted canvas all the time. Mm-hmm. Again, where you need 2 threads. I don't like to do it if I have more than 2 threads, like 4 threads or 6 threads, because then I think the first stitch is really hard to lay your threads correctly for that first loop stitch. So I only do it with 2 threads. I don't do it with multiples of 2.
Well, I can see that because they're all coming through Yeah, that would be hard to get everything even. Yeah, I can see that because they're all coming through the hole from different positions.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a mess. Yeah.
And the top cross will hide a lot of that because I even am not always real happy with the way the first cross stitch lays with a loop start, but the next stitch that goes over it is going to hide most of it. So, I'll live with it.
Yeah. Do you railroad the top, if you're 2 strands, do you railroad at least the top stitch?
Yes.
Okay. Huge difference.
Always. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know about that until I took a needlepoint class. And after that, I think I have to have all my threads laying side by side. And even sometimes railroading won't do it. If your threads get a little bit twisted, railroading isn't enough.
Right.
I don't use a laying tool when I'm cross stitching.
Oh, geez. That'd be painful.
Yeah. But I will, if I'm not happy with the way the stitches lie, I will pull them loose and, fiddle with them until I can get them so they lay straight side by side.
Yeah.
And I think, I see a lot of people complaining about how threads cover when you're only using 2 threads or maybe even more than that, especially with DMC black is what people complain about a lot. And I suspect that it is partly because they aren't laying the threads side by side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't tell from, the photos that you see on social media are never quite, you can't get that kind of close up.
Right.
But I suspect that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly it plays a role. Well, that's why high thread count linen or canvas and single strand. I just I don't like dealing with it.
Yeah, that's a lazy way.
And I'm taking it.
Yeah, and I would be too if I wasn't trying to stitch something for every category in the fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the little ones that I am stitching over one or on a high count linen, where I can use 1 thread, I love those.
Yep.
But I can't do that for everything.
Well, you did that to yourself, so.
I know that's in fact, I think the next one that I'm starting for WIPGO this month is on 28 count linen. I might need to use 3 threads for that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, oh no, now you're in 3 thread territory. Oh.
And I will be using my laying tool.
Yeah. Yeah, you got no choice there. Otherwise, you just got a jumbled mess. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and so it's 3 really bright pumpkins, purples and blues, and on a bright yellow linen.
Oh, yeah. There you are.
So I have to have enough coverage to cover up the linen
right
where the stitches are. So I'm afraid that'll be 3 threads, but I haven't started it yet, so I don't know. We'll see.
Pearl 8, Pearl 12, yeah.
Well, it calls for Weeks Dye Works.
Oh, okay. Well,
so there's a little. They aren't real variegated, but there's a little bit of variegation. And Weeks Dye Works actually does come in pearl cotton, but I already have all the threads, so.
More power to you.
Yeah, it is what it is.
More power to you. Yep. Single strand for me. Yeah. At all costs. At all costs. Yes.
I do struggle with the 40 count. I have trouble seeing it, even with the magnifying lamp.
Oh. Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. I can do it, but I have to work at it a little harder.
Oh, see, then that starts to suck the fun out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So far, I don't have that. I lock in and I'm good to go. So.
Yeah.
Single strand. I'm toughing it out all the way till I can't anymore. Yep.
Yeah, me too, all the way. But I do like full coverage, So although I don't want it to be over full.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm working on right now is 32 count.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using 2 strands, and it's covering just fine.
Yeah.
So that would be the equivalent of 16 count with over 2. I think on 18 count, I'm also using 2 strands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't
So that
mind.
would be 36.
Yeah, I don't mind if a little ground cloth shows through in cross stitch. I don't mind that.
Well, and here again, it's that difference between 6 inches from your nose,
Yeah.
or hanging on the wall, and you look at it from 3 feet away.
Right. Yeah. You got to watch that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me, and usually with needlepoint stuff, it's getting full coverage is not a problem.
Right.
Threads are usually thick enough that you can get it, so you don't have it showing through. Because that then starts to bother me because you're typically on white canvas, and if you got a dark color, that can be a problem visually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, so I'm working on black Congress cloth right now for another project that I had mentioned before. Our local
if I was
A&G
envious,
chapter.
I'd say so, but I'm not.
Well, actually, this kind of relates back to your post of your conversation with Anne Marie, or about Anne Marie, because we are doing one of her free projects as our study topic for the next couple of months. It's the one called Autumn Fireworks, and everybody's kind of doing their own colors because she hand dyed her over-dyed thread for that, and you can't get it.
Oh,
So, and besides that, it's fun to change colors.
Sure.
So I'm using a silk thread called Ada's Rainbow, and it is bright, and it's on black, and it screams. It is really, really bright, but I really like it. It's really pretty.
But you got to make sure it covers.
Well, I'm using 3 strands of the Ada's Rainbow for Scotch stitches, and that's covering well.
Yeah.
I have another thread that is done with cross stitches, and I'm just using 2 strands of that, and you can see a little bit of the Congress cloth behind it, but that's okay. There will be Congress cloth showing. It's not a full coverage piece. She uses a lot of the Jean Hilton stitches in it, so there's Jessica's and I want to say waffle, but I don't think that's right. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Those Jean Hilton stitches are so fun to do.
Yeah.
I just think they're a blast to do.
I do too.
Yeah. Even if you just sat there and did them by themselves with no design, they're just fun to do. All the manipulation and everything to get them just right, and then they always look so cool when they're done.
And people say, "How did you do that?"
Magic.
Yeah. I wave my wand.
Yep. It's what I do.
Called a needle.
It's what I do, and don't you wish you could?
And I'll be happy to teach you.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing. They look so intimidating, but they're not.
Right.
They're really not. Like Debbie Rowley talks about, once you get the rhythm of the stitch, you don't even need the chart. You just go.
Right.
Yeah. Cool stuff. That's something I was thinking the other day. I saw Jean Hilton something other, and I thought, I should probably spend some money and buy a bunch of her designs just to have them. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, why would I do that?
Because you're a collector?
Yeah, there's some of that in me, yeah. Mm-hmm. But,
the nice thing about Jean Hilton is that somebody has acquired the right. I don't think it's a family person that's doing it, but somebody has the rights to sell her charts.
Yeah, it's a shop in Indiana, isn't it? I think it is.
I think so.
Yeah, that has all of them, yeah.
So those won't go away. The only problem is that, I think we've talked about this before too. If you don't have a model where you can see what it looks like when it's stitched, a lot of people aren't going to buy the chart.
Yeah.
Because they don't like the colors, or the picture just doesn't do the project justice. So you really have to see somebody stitch it. This is why these things come up when you see them on YouTube. Somebody dredges up an old chart from somebody and starts stitching it on YouTube, and then all of a sudden everybody wants the chart.
Right.
And 3/4 of the time they're out of print.
Right. Yeah. But then there's a model. There's I got to see that, and that's the cool thing is so many of those they don't get old.
No, the colors that they were done in originally are not colors we'd use today, but if you can learn to look past the colors and think about colors that you would. So we took a road trip to our closest needlework shop, which is about 2 hours away from me, on Saturday to help some of our members choose their colors. Uh-huh. So the first thing we did was pick the overdyed, and it had to be an overdyed that had at least 3 colors in it, so that you can have 3 solids that coordinate with that. Right. And people have trouble choosing colors, but overdyes do all the work for you, really.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, so many charted canvas designers, that's their standard approach is find a multicolored overdye and then build off of that.
Yep.
And yeah, why not? It's all the work's done. Yeah.
Yep. And if people don't know what color to start with, I say, what's your favorite color? It's usually whatever they've got on.
Yep.
Blue or red or purple or, whatever. Or, maybe they want to do something to go in their living room, so they can think about the colors in their house as a starting point.
Yep. Use that and go with it. You're most comfortable with it. Yep. Build off of that. Sure.
Yep. It's hard to do if you only have the ability to buy your threads online, but the DMC has 2 different lines of multicolored threads. One is called Colorus and the other is Color Variations. And Michael's has those. Mm-hmm. Joanne's doesn't. They just have the solid colors.
Yeah.
But bigger Joanne's might have more. I don't know about Hobby Lobby. I haven't been in Hobby Lobby for a long time. But there are ways to get variegated threads where you can look at the colors and then you have your solid threads right there to match.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that you really miss a store for, that you can't go in and see the colors, see the threads, and choose your colors.
Yep. Oh yeah. This is my ground cloth. Lay out the threads on top. Go over to this shelf and get another one, and you spend half a day in a store just working that out. Yep.
Take them over to the window, see what they look like in daylight.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Instead of the shop lights. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and speaking of that, using that, but also one that came to mind while you were describing that is Trish Burr's color book.
Yes.
Where she has put together a whole bunch of combinations of colors. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful book. That's a real good place too if you're nervous about colors. She's done that work for you. Yeah.
And I get my color wheels out frequently too. Mm-hmm. I had a project that I needed 3 colors for. I had 2 of the colors and I wasn't sure what I wanted for the 3rd color, and I kind of additioned a few things, and then I got the color card out and okay, here's what's opposite of this color, and that's what I was looking for. And I also have
you're so old school.
I know. Well, that is one of the things that we did a program about that a few years ago using a color chart, and we just printed some typical quilt blocks and gave people colored pencils and said, here's your pick a triadic scheme to go with this red pencil, and color the blocks in, or whatever it was. So everybody had color wheels at their tables and different colors to work with, and so they it kind of gave them some practice in. And then the next time we did some stitching with whatever threads. I also have a quilt book, and I can't remember the name of it, and I don't have it close to me, but it is, and there's other ones like this, that do color combinations with fabric.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can see the colors. If your color is pink, you can go to the pink pages and see what is complementary and, what the different color schemes would be for a quilt. But, it works for thread too.
That's a cool idea, though, if you want to play with colors, to sit down with a color wheel and colored pencils.
Uh-huh.
Boy, that's, yeah. I mean, how simple is that? And what do you out if it doesn't work out? You put an X through it and move on to another corner of the page. That's yeah, that's a really good idea.
And you can find kind of standard quilt blocks online that we just picked a couple and copied them several times over on the page. I think we did them like 2 by 2, so you could fit 9 on a page real easily.
Yeah.
And so I think we actually did assign everybody a color, and we tried to avoid colors that we knew were people's favorites. So the person that likes orange, we have them use pink.
Right.
To kind of get people comfortable with working with colors that they don't really like. And the other thing you can learn by doing that is you can see, okay, I don't like pink, but I could put these other colors with it and just use pink as the accent color.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can find ways to use colors that maybe are not your favorite, but really do make a piece come alive.
Yeah. Huh. That's a fun, and that's a fun guild activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, another thing that we did was we had people bring skeins of over-dyed floss to a meeting, and we put them in a brown paper bag and kind of shook them up, and then everybody drew one out. And we had a pattern. So, they had to take that thread home and stitch the pattern with and add whatever other threads. It was a stash buster kind of a thing.
Oh, that's excellent, though.
Yeah.
Get you out of your comfort zone, yeah.
Getting people out of their comfort zones, yeah.
Wow, great idea. Oh, I got this color. I hate it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, yeah, and people wound up with colors that weren't exactly. And I won't say everybody actually did the project, but it's fun to do these little exercises to kind of stretch our abilities a little bit, and to see that you don't have to follow what the designer came up with.
Right.
You can, if you like it, great. But if you don't like the colors she used or he used, pick different colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, don't, and I think that's something that people need to keep in mind when you're looking at a design. Look at the design,
mm-hmm.
not the colors that were chosen, but do you like the design?
Right.
And,
do you like the stitches? Do you like the way they're laid out?
Right. And then sort out the colors later. If you like the
mm-hmm.
colors they spec, like you said, yeah, great. But
so when you're going back to something like the Jean Hilton charts, that were done in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, that they're done in those colors that were popular those years.
Yeah.
And also in limited threads, because she didn't have all the threads available to her then that we have now.
Right.
The silk lamaze and some of the Rainbow Gallery threads were available then, like the flare and neon rays. I think she used quite a bit of those.
Mm-hmm.
But the newer threads she didn't have available to her. But there's nothing that says you can't change the threads that she used.
Right.
Right along with the colors.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's just it. Yeah. Don't shove a design aside just because of the colors it was stitched in. Look at if you like the design, sort out the colors. Yeah.
Right. But that takes a little bit of time, and I think that is one of the things that maybe was on our list of stuff to kind of talk about. How do we choose a project or what draws us to a project design.
Yeah.
So many people just glance at something quickly and don't really, they let their first impression of the project move them on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things to do, that there's really nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's not like there's any lack of stuff for us to stitch.
Yeah, there's a few choices,
and patterns for everybody's taste. But, if you want to challenge yourself a little bit, look a little deeper at the design.
Yeah, that's for me. Cross stitch stuff. It's do I like it or not? And just do reproduction samplers. Yeah, I just do the colors that are there, and I like it, and it's fine. But for when I get to counted canvas stuff, I probably ignore the colors. I'm looking at what are the challenges here? What kinds of stitches am I going to get to do? How am I going to stitch them? Mm-hmm. Will they go to because for me that's all the stuff that makes me want to do a piece. Yeah. Those challenges. What am I going to take out of this piece when I'm all done? And all right, I like the colors too, so I'll use those, or I don't, and I'll figure something out or get someone to help me do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're a guild member, there's always somebody to help, or if you've got stores, the shop owners will help. Right.
I think that's
people post questions online.
Yeah, I think that's what drives me. What makes you like a piece? Other than cross stitch, I think that's what drives me for any other technique. Mm-hmm. What am I gonna learn from it? What challenges are there that are going to make it a fun thing to tackle? Mm-hmm. And then that's what that I make my decision based on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because even hard hanger, if you take that, if you take a pretty basic thing, if you've done any of it, it gets monotonous in a hurry. Yeah. But then you move on to some of the more advanced stuff, and you can make yourself work pretty good at it to get it all right. Daisy eyes or whatever they are.
Oh all the different filling stitches.
Yep. Yeah, and then that's when it gets fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lacy edges.
Right. Yeah. 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 So that then that becomes appealing, but then typically those things are just to pick on hard hanger. Typically that'll be like a table runner somebody did. And okay, I'm not doing that. But if I took and did a square with that pattern, then that's a more approachable thing, and you still get the same experience out of it. So,
right.
Yeah. Yep. All right, we better stop.
Okay.
Yeah. Holy smokes, we've been talking a long time. All right, that's going to be it. Join us tonight, 8 o'clock, Deb DeCrane on Lacing Needlework. You'll learn something there. Sunday, Jessica Grimm, you'll learn something there, too, about history, old, medieval, stitching, goldwork, museums, all of that stuff. It's great fun, and she's terrific at telling about it. So all of that, thanks for listening.
Bye.